Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today I found something rather interesting, and this is coming from Ars Technica by author Kate Cox. And Kate, good job on this. This was beyond fascinating. So I'm wondering now, should websites be forced to accommodate people with disabilities? Now, think about this for a second. We are moving more and more to using apps and websites as opposed to things like phones. So if we are ordering food, we have things like DoorDash and a whole bunch of other stuff where we can go ahead, don't have to talk to a human, don't have to pick up a phone, can literally just order from a menu, hit go, pay with a credit card, and then within, half hour, whatever it takes, you get food here. This has been absolutely exploding. And aside from the psychological factor of no longer having to deal with the human, which is a whole other thing, this has made life convenient for most people, except for those people that have disabilities that make it very difficult for them to go ahead and use things like websites and use things like apps when they are preferring phones because it's easier for them to use. We're talking about the blind or maybe somebody that has a problem using their hands in all of this. Now, the reason why we're talking about this is Dominos Pizza, and if you are not in the United States, Dominos Pizza, if you don't have one in your country, it is one of the largest franchises of pizza restaurants in the United States. I won't talk to if they're good or bad or not. I'm not a huge fan, but they are pretty massive. They are actually right now literally saying that they do not have to have their website or apps or anything like that actually be accessible to the disabled to help them. And they are going to the United States Supreme Court, that is the court that has final decisions on all legal matters in the United States, to basically let it stay this way. Now, Domino's made a legal filing, and I've got notes here. Thank you very much, Ms. Cox. They made a legal filing called a writ of certiorari. I think I'm pronouncing that correct. I am not a lawyer, although I do play one on the internet. They made this writ of certiorari to the U.S. Supreme Court last week, which is basically creating an argument as to why the Supreme Court should take their case. Now, in their petition, Domino's asked the court to determine whether the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, and again, if you're not in America, this is the act that basically says if you have a public front, it has to be accessible to the disabled. In other words, a ramp for a wheelchair, elevators, bathrooms that accommodate, this kind of thing. But basically, they are saying that the app does not need to satisfy this. And I quote here from this writ: websites and mobile apps do not become public accommodations simply by virtue of providing access to the goods and services of a brick and mortar enterprise. The ADA does not demand full accessibility for each and every means of accessing goods or services a public accommodation provides to the public. Now, courts here in the United States have been splitting on this, and so Domino's is basically capitalizing on this, saying the time is ripe for the Supreme Court to make a final decision. And I think this is interesting in the sense that I can understand Domino's logic here. You are not actually walking into one of their buildings. All of the buildings for Domino's, like any public storefront or restaurant, would absolutely accommodate a disabled person. They're also saying here that they're not getting rid of the ability to actually call them and place an order for Domino's either, which is historically, if you are ordering food, that may be easier for you if you're disabled. Now, that's interesting in the sense that what we are seeing as we are moving forward is, if we have a Supreme Court decision that says, you're absolutely right, your app and your website do not have to accommodate the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, then what happens when phones basically go away, when we stop making those calls? So how are we going to connect to them? Is it going to be through a Skype or something like that that's going to replace phones? Or are we going to have to use apps, in which case then they would have to accommodate that? So are we stemming, if the Supreme Court is saying they do not have to do this, then I'm wondering what the long-term ramifications are as we shift away from traditional and conventional things like actually driving somewhere to pick something up or picking up a phone, which most of us are doing less and less and less, which is why we all can pretty much get unlimited calling wherever we want from any carrier, because they're just seeing the call volume drop. So I'm curious to know what you guys think of this, but it's a very fascinating subject. And we may be seeing that apps are required to have modes that are accessible to those that are disabled or have a hard time using them right now. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I think it's a very interesting future question in technology. And again, thanks to Kate Cott of Ars Technica for the article. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please, because I need the followers. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.